Okay. I'm thankful, however, Justin, for having raised this question of why are we having a referendum, and what aren't referendums in their nature a derogation from our political process? For us, democracy does not proceed by plebiscites, it proceeds by representation. We elect to Parliament the people whom we trust to represent our interests, and they take charge of things on our behalf and are answerable to us, but they're not our delegates, they're not people who are relaying our opinions and judgments, they are taking the issue forward on their own account, and we can vote them out of office if they make a mistake. And I think one of the problems is that we have elected these people to Parliament, and over the last decades or so, in the hope that they would settle this issue, settle the issue of the European Union and our relation to it. And at every point, they have refused to address it. Feeling among the people has run higher and higher, and still the issue is not discussed in Parliament in terms of the national interest. It's always in terms of the existing institutions and how we can amend them, even though everybody knows that they have been immune to emendation from the beginning. Now, I think the question, and this is something which has become very clear and was made clear by, I think it's Mr. Hibbard, who just asked a question. The question is not about the short term, it is about the long term. The economic arguments are all about the short term, and they are all, as I think Adam Zamoyski said, absurd, because they all presuppose the ability to predict what is unpredictable. And we know that from looking at the history of economic cooperation. But the long-term question is about our identity. It's not about our economic success or failure. The identity of a country is that which makes it possible for it to be ruled. The sense that we share something which brings us together, which enables us to accept being governed by people we didn't vote for, as I think has already been said, and to join together in crises to resolve our collective problem. We act collectively. We can only do this because we trust each other. Trust and belonging is what it's all about. In our history, trust has been vested in the nation state, and its sovereignty, and the territory over which it has exercised that sovereignty. Territory for us is not an arbitrary thing, nor are the borders that secure it. It is what defines what we are. And in that territory, various institutions have grown, and a language has come into existence. And those institutions are valued by us. They are precious to us because they encapsulate our freedom. And one in particular, I think, needs to be mentioned. I think actually Tom Kramer did mention it, which is the common law. Our European partners, as Laura would wrongly describe them, are governed by a system of law, the Roman law, and its derivations through the Code Napoleon and so on, which is essentially a top-down system. Law is made by parliaments, or by, in the European case, by unaccountable institutions, and then delivered to the people who are told to obey. In our system, this is not true, and it never has been, not since Anglo-Saxon times. The fundamental legal structures of our country emerged from the courts, from judges resolving conflicts in the individual case, and in the course of doing so, encapsulating in our law both the adaptability of judicial reasoning and also the spontaneous sentiments of belonging of the people. So common law for us has always been a feature of the things that make us trust each other. It's a form of rule from below rather than dictatorship from above. And this is where I think we should see the great question of migration. Although we're told that it's vulgar to reflect on this, we can't deny that it's part of what people are worried about. Massive migration is a solvent of trust. When your children are put into schools where English is the second language of most of the other children in the class, where the customs of the teacher and of your parent and of the parents are not replicated through the classroom, then you have a sense that perhaps you don't all belong to the same community, and a huge new effort has to be made to create trust. How do we create that trust? It's well known that, looking at the history of Eastern Europe, that totalitarian government, especially under the communists, depended upon breaking down trust between people. If there is no spontaneous trust between people, they then depend upon top-down government in order to stay together. And that is, of course, what happened to Adam Zamoyski's country, or what should have been his country, of which he is a hereditary count, and therefore has some kind of duty towards it. That happened to his country in the post-war period, the breaking down of trust among the people, which led to the necessity for some kind of control from above. And this bears on the migration issue. When we look at his country today, we see, of course, it's been liberated. It's been liberated by people who strove to take the message of freedom to that place during the dark years of communism, Adam himself being one of them, I, in my smaller way, another. And I was there yesterday and speaking to the foreign minister about the migration problem, and he said, you know, of course we welcomed the entry into the European Union, and the people welcomed it. Why? Because it enabled them to get away. And now we have the biggest democratic problem that we've had in our history. We can't pay the pensions that we're obliged to pay. All our best young people have left, our qualified middle class likewise. That's what freedom of movement has done to Poland and to other countries in Eastern Europe, from my experience, so that we who bear the weight of migration on our infrastructure have also caused another weight to them, which is the loss of their educated and technically competent class. So, you know, why should we have accepted this? We were never given any possibility, because the treaty under which we live was signed nearly 70 years ago by people who lived in a completely different situation and who were trying to unite four countries which didn't want to migrate into each other at all, and had the same standard of living and the same general economic structure. That treaty was relevant, perhaps, to those four countries. It's not relevant to us now. But we are living under this treaty, and it's not an ordinary treaty, as Daniel himself has said. It's a treaty which has law-making powers, can impose laws from above on our common law jurisdiction without our being able to adjust them. And these laws are reflecting decisions and thoughts and ideals of people long since dead, who had a completely different conception of what Europe would be than the actuality that we face today. So that in a sense, we're being ruled by the long hand of the dead. And those dead people were themselves conspirators against the idea of the nation state. For Jean Monnet, that was the cause of wars. We have to get rid of the nation state. And the treaty was formulated in order to facilitate that. Yet we survived the last war because of our loyalty to the nation state. It's all we've got. It's the thing that enables us to belong together as a collective, as a we, despite our differences of religion, class, employment, ideals, and so on. So we have something that keeps us together, and I want to retain that thing. That's why I would say we should leave.